This is the second video in a series where we'll dive into Scope 3 emissions. By the end of this series, you'll know the key levers you can pull in your supply chain and, most importantly, what not to do. In the last video, we covered the basics of Scope 3. What are they? What are the 15 categories and where you can start? I'm Ashley Olson, the founder of Evolveable Consulting, and we provide sustainability and circular solutions to companies around the world. And if you're looking for strategies to understand and influence your value chain emissions, you'll love this series, so keep watching. Today, we'll talk about value chain mapping and materiality. So firstly, what is my value chain? A company's value chain is typically part of a larger value system that includes both companies either upstream or downstream of their operations. This perspective about how value is created forces companies to consider and see each activity not just as a cost, but as a step that has to add some incremental value to the finished product or service. It is critical that you know where you sit and who you serve in your value chain. The demand for lower carbon products and sustainable procurement is increasing rapidly. You need to stay ahead of your competition in order to maintain commercial sustainability. So on to value chain mapping. The best way to understand what your value chain is and where you sit is to map it out. You don't need to overcomplicate the mapping. Grab a whiteboard and start with the upstream side of your operations and map it as far as you can at a high level. Then map the downstream value chain components. Include logistics between each step. You might not get very far. It's highly complex. The length of each side will depend on where you sit in the value chain. Now take a look at the value chain and flag whether the company is a small, medium, or large contributor. Why do we do this? You want to know two things. Firstly, the potential for carbon emissions and the overall environmental impact. Secondly, how much influence you have over them in your value chain. This will then feed into the materiality assessment. So the materiality assessment, you start this once you've mapped out your supply chain. How do you understand the materiality along the value chain? There's multiple ways you can approach this. You can do it based on spend data, or you can do it based on emission intensity. Ideally, have primary data. The accuracy will vary. However, the major hotspots are typically the same using either approach. The purpose of this is to narrow your focus down to a key set of suppliers where the highest percentage of your emissions sit. Depending on your product or service, most client hotspots in the industry will be similar. For example, if there is steel production or use of construction materials, the focus is on these sectors at present to decarbonise. However, this will begin to flow down the value chain to other areas, so you need to be prepared as you might be next. That wraps up today's video on value chain mapping and materiality. We covered what a value chain is, how to map your value chain, and how to identify material emission contributors within your value chain. In the next video, we'll talk about how to engage with your suppliers. If you like this video, make sure to follow us on LinkedIn right now so you don't miss the future parts of this series. If you want assistance in mapping your value chain, please reach out to us through LinkedIn or head over to evolveable.com. Now I want to turn it over to you. What does your value chain look like? What are the challenges you face in mapping your value chain? Let us know by leaving a comment below. Thank you.